Hello, everyone. Welcome back. And here's your current events for today, Thursday, April 9th, 2020. Bernie Sanders announced yesterday the suspension of his campaign for the Democratic nomination for president. This now makes former Vice President Joe Biden the presumptive Democratic nominee. Sanders told his supporters that he did not see a path to victory despite early wins in New Hampshire and Nevada. He will not release his delegates and will keep his name on the ballot on the remaining contests in hopes that he and his supporters can influence the Democratic platform. So he would really like to see some of his more, as others would say, liberal ideas make it into Joe Biden's campaign. And we'll see what kind of success that he will have in that endeavor. Now all attention for the Democrats will turn to the selection of the running mate for former Vice President Joe Biden. Many people are encouraging Vice President Biden to select a woman or a minority woman. One of the leading contenders is our very own governor, Gretchen Whitmer. Michigan is a swing state. She's battled President Trump over the pandemic. Other names are Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris. So we'll see what direction they go. And he decides to go. Will he stay with a moderate running mate, similar to his views, or will he go and try and get someone more liberal, maybe Elizabeth Warren, so that he can unify the party and bring on Bernie Sanders supporters? According to data released this very morning by the United States Labor Department, 6.6 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. In the last 3 weeks, 16.8 million U.S. workers, or 10% of the labor force, have filed for benefits. Bank of America economists expect unemployment numbers to peak between now and June with as many as 16 to 20 million job losses. This translates to an unemployment rate of 15.6%, which would be up considerably from the March pre-COVID-19 rate of 4.4%. As new cases of COVID-19 are declining in the hardest hit areas of the country, President Trump hopes the economy can resume by mid-May. Our very own Governor Whitmer is going to announce an extension of the shelter-in-place order sometime today. The furthest the order can extend will be May 1st, since the state legislature earlier this week extended the state of emergency to that date. We are seeing promising numbers. The number of new cases in the state have declined. And that is due to the social distancing that Whitmer probably will continue, as I said, to May 1st. The Organization of the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons Investigation and Identification Team has concluded that Syrian government forces used chemical weapons on a Syrian town in March of 2017. The 82-page report said the Syrian Air Force dropped bombs containing sarin gas and then later used bombs that released chlorine gas. Over 100 citizens were impacted by these attacks. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said the United States agrees with the findings of the reports and believes that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is responsible for atrocities that rise to the level of war crimes. Today's political cartoon compares the lines of the Great Depression to the unemployment lines due to the pandemic. They are similar. If you've seen the news in Florida, lots of people were having difficulty trying to file for unemployment using the online system, and so they had a chance to line up at an office to get the application. Literally hundreds of people lined up. Michigan has been having problems. New York has been having problems with its online unemployment system. The reason why is because of the large numbers. We looked at the numbers earlier in the report of 6.6 million cases, let alone last month. That's what is different from the Great Depression. The Great Depression was a slow rise in unemployment, not a sudden 1 or 2 month, 3 month explosion. And so many economists believe that as quickly as the economy stopped, it can resume. Now, will it go right back up to where it is? Probably not. Again, the Bank of America economists are saying it could take as long as 2 years to get back to that 4.4% level. But no one is expecting or predicting a Great Depression-like decade of high unemployment. Here's what happened on this date in history. In 1865, Robert E. Lee surrenders at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. This comes after Jefferson Davis ordered Lee not to surrender, but instead to engage in a campaign of trench warfare. We talked about this in History 2 in our World War I unit, how terrible trench warfare was, and that General Lee knew that as well, and instead of subjecting his men to trench warfare with the goal of creating so many casualties that the Union would sue for peace, instead he surrendered his troops to Lee, thus ending the Civil War. In 1939, Marian Anderson sang on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Marian Anderson was scheduled to perform at the Daughter of American Revolution's auditorium in Washington, D.C., but when the Daughters of American Revolution realized that Anderson was an African American, they canceled her performance. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt was so upset that she resigned her membership from the Daughters of American Revolution and scheduled the free concert on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. And in 1942, United States troops surrendered in Bataan, Philippines, in what became what was known as the largest U.S. surrender of troops ever. This came shortly after the attack on Pearl Harbor. U.S. troops were told to hold out as long as they could. They could not be evacuated, and at the point where they could no longer hold out, to surrender, expecting the Japanese to treat them well. The Japanese believed that surrendering is the most dishonorable thing you could do. And so when the U.S. troops followed orders and surrendered, the Japanese troops felt they had no honor left and treated them as such and marched them across the Bataan Peninsula, or the Bataan region, in what became known as the Bataan Death March, showing no mercy for U.S. troops. Well, that's our current events and our day in history for today, April 9th, 2020. I'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. Until then, this is Mr. Ruska signing off from the home office, reminding you again, keep calm and keep on reading. We'll see you tomorrow.